Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 2 of the Amicable Divorce Network podcast. I am your host, Tracy Ann Moore-Grant, and I am joined today by one of our founding members, Kathleen Shack. And as you all know, we are going through the Amicable Divorce Network book, Divorce Amicably, Your Roadmap to Resolution. And today we are talking about some topics that really concern almost everybody going through a divorce. And so we are talking with Kathleen today on that primary question: to divorce or not to divorce, and also touch on the process of discernment counseling. Kathleen, thank you so much for your contribution for the book and for joining me here today.
You're so welcome. Thanks for including me.
Kathleen is a mental health professional, and so she is on the front line of meeting with both individuals and couples who are facing this important question. Tell us about that, Kathleen, and what people struggle with during this time.
Yeah, so oftentimes I'll have either couples come in where they're on the fence about whether to stay married or whether or not divorce is going to be the option for them. And then other times I have individuals come in who are really struggling and just want to get some input and really be thinking through all of the necessary questions and doing their homework before trying to talk with their spouse or make a decision about the direction of their relationship. And it's a really difficult time for people. And sometimes it can last years, sometimes months, but it's definitely a situation where it's not black and white. Even when there's been infidelity or there's been addictions, it's very complex to decide what to do with your entire family system and what direction to go in.
I'm glad you touched on that. It could take several years. Sometimes people aren't in counseling, and I'm the person that they go to first, which I don't recommend. Go to a mental health professional like Kathleen, because I'm here to give legal options. Generally, once somebody has already made a decision, but happy to walk through that. But what you touch on is certainly probably more to the heart of the issue, which is really the mental preparedness, the making that decision, which is really a personal, emotional decision, not as much a legal decision most of the time. But I have had clients who have come to me once a year for 7 years, trying to make this decision. Like, I might be there now. I got one toe in and one toe out. And that happens sometimes. I think people are very careful about this decision as well. I don't see a lot of people doing it willy-nilly.
Right. And I think a lot of people on the outside of the decision-making process think that it's black and white, and they think it should be cut and dry, pretty easy, especially with infidelity and things. But it is so complex, and people really struggle, and they want to make sure that they're making the right decision. And so we talk about how there's not necessarily a right or a wrong decision. People just need to look at what's going to be healthiest for them, what's healthiest for their kids, and look at how the relationship got to that point, and then really exploring, are there some chances that this relationship could get back on track? Are there things that could be done? Making sure we look under every rock and try to figure out what are some options here before looking at the possibility of, maybe divorce is where that person's leaning to. And so then we look at what are the healthiest ways to do that. And that's how I got so involved with Amicable Divorce Network, is because if somebody's going to get divorced, I'd want them to do it in a healthy, amicable way. So then I talk with them about healthy ways to get divorced and unhealthy ways to get divorced. So then we were able to have that kind of conversation as well.
Yeah. And thank you for that and for all of your support. I think that's really important for mental health professionals to know, to be able to guide people, because I would say a lot of individuals don't know there's different ways to approach your divorce. They have very different paths and incomes as well. Yeah. Outcomes, but that is part of what the book's about. So if you're listening to this, you're probably interested in this journey. I see often where people come to me and lay out the facts and circumstances, and they want me to tell them what to do. They sort of look at me like, now you've heard it all, so what should I do? Should I file or not file? I imagine that happens to you probably more often.
It happens very often. And I remind them they have to have freedom of choice. Like, it is not my decision about what's going to happen with their relationship. And especially with discernment counseling, when they come in, they think I'm going to be the one discerning what they should do with their life. And I really have to hit home with them. I'm going to help you explore how you guys got here and all the issues that y'all are facing. But in the end, it's your decision. There has to be free will, where you're the one that's leading your life and making sure that you've thought of everything before you make a decision.
Absolutely. That ultimately is a personal decision that the person has to make. And so we won't make those decisions for you, but we can certainly help. And you've touched on a process that is really revolutionary and is really great. So Kathleen works with individuals and individual counseling if people need that. And she's touched on that a little bit, but something else that she does that is quite unique is called discernment counseling. And I often send the clients who come to me who aren't quite sure what to do back to Kathleen, a little circular motion, to go through this process. A lot of people have never heard about discernment counseling. So tell us what it's all about.
So discernment counseling is a really short process because the idea is to get couples out of limbo. So it's up to 5 sessions, and I meet with the people individually, and then we have brief together time, but the individual time is really spent looking at how did the relationship get to this point? What are contributing factors that each person contributed to how the relationship got to the point where one of them or both of them is considering leaning out of the relationship? And we look at the 3 paths. So the 3 paths are, y'all are going to be trying to decide if you want to decide to work in couples counseling and sign up for 6 months of couples counseling with a couples counselor to work on the relationship issues. Or we're going to look at the path of possibly getting divorced or separated. And we go through the reality of what that would look like, have them talk about the impacts on the kids, have them talk about impacts on finances. So we get into the nuts and bolts of what divorce would look like. And then the third path that rarely is chosen, but sometimes it is just remain status quo. So it could be they may have all these discussions and still feel like they need some more time to be processing and thinking before choosing whether to move towards separation or divorce or to move into couples counseling. So the big meat of it is done in individual session time, where I'm really helping the individuals explore and figure out their strengths, figure out the issues that maybe they bring to the situation, and to see if they could be a catalyst for change. And then we look at, what is that change going to look like? Is it going to be trying to stay together, or is it going to try to be amicably finding a way to go through a divorce and get the family system through that in a whole way?
Yeah, it's not couples counseling. It is very different. So I often have clients come to me and they're like, we've been in couples counseling for 3 years and like nothing has happened. And they're very hesitant to try something different. But just reflecting on it, discernment counseling is short, it is organized, and the purpose is to, at the end of the 5 sessions maximum, to make a decision. And so people who often, I call it marinating, who often feel like they've been marinating in this period of indecision for, years, months, whatever the case may be. This is an actual process to help you not be marinating anymore and to move forward, whether it is divorce, reconciliation, and what that looks like.
Right. And it's so unhealthy for people to be in limbo and to be marinating for long periods of time, because they end up with so many stress hormones going through their system, depression, anxiety, different things happening. And if they don't know how to make the relationship better, they're just stewing and not getting anywhere. So it's really important that they make a choice about, okay, we're going to start working on this, or we're going to look at can we divide it up.
And I'm glad you touched on that, because yes, anxiety, cortisol levels are incredibly unhealthy, and to sit in that space with that constant sort of elevated, you probably have sleep problems, you could have heart problems, you could be on tons of medication you don't need to be on, and it may not be the decision that you want, but sometimes just having that decision actually diffuses the tension and relaxes people so much. They know what the road is now. They're going to move forward whichever way that might be. And so I also want to clarify, discernment counseling is an actual training as well that you received. So tell me, who can take that training, what that looks like for professionals who can call themselves discernment counselor?
Yeah, it's a specialized training that counselors can undergo. Also, pastors can do a training for discernment counseling, because pastors are the ones who get a lot of these first rounds of conversations with people. But yeah, it's through Discernment Counseling Institute, and they are able to train people to work with these certain kinds of clients and to really be able to recognize the pain that people are in at this point, but also be solution focused. And that's the hardest part, is as counselors, we're so used to empathizing and just being there for them, letting them explore their feelings and be able to take a long time to process things. But this is such an abbreviated process that we're really trying to stay solution focused and hearing where they're at, but also trying to get them to see that there's some decisions that need to be made so that they can get out of that limbo. But it's a really good training. And if anybody wants information on it, I'm happy to connect them with the right people.
Because your practice is centered in Georgia, so I imagine you could only help people in Georgia. So you might be listening to this or reading the book and you are in Montana or somewhere else if you need a professional. I just want to reflect again that a lot of people come to me and they say, oh, I have done that, and they've actually just done couples therapy. So if you are looking for discernment counseling, that is the name, that is the training. And you can go to our website at divorceamicably.com, and with Kathleen's chapter in the book, there will also be resources to reach out to her and to find somebody in your area. And so hopefully people will find that to be very helpful. I think that's interesting to say, you know, as well, that pastors could be the front line as well. And I think in spreading the word about this and everything else, honestly, when people are facing divorce, anybody could be the front line. They shouldn't necessarily be the discernment counselor, but they could be the person that somebody confides in. So it's important to make sure as many people as possible know about this. So if people are listening to this and they think that discernment counseling or individual counseling is right for them and they want to meet with you, how can they find you?
The best way is to go to my website. So it's mftga.com, or to email me, Kathleen@mftga.com. Those are the best ways to get a hold of me. And I'll email you back the same day and try to get in touch, and we can start having some conversations about where you're at with your relationships.
Yeah, sometimes just taking the first step can really help people just know that they're taking some action to get some answers. If you're listening to this and you're driving, we're going to have Kathleen's information in the show notes with this episode, and also on our website. Everything will be linked together so that you can get the information that you need. Kathleen, thank you very much for sharing this important topic and for your contribution to the book and to helping people through the divorce process.
You're welcome. Thank you.